Hi everyone, it is tier list time because we're in a new season, and unfortunately the recording got a bit corrupted, so I was able to do some of them. I'll quickly summarize them and move on to the rest of the roster. So BAP and Ana are pretty much an S tier. They're both really strong. The BAP nerf didn't really do that much to, it doesn't even address any of his actual problems, which is pretty much Mr. 3 HP bars. We were doing some scrims yesterday. We were like a group of high masters, low GM players, just all grouped up together and testing out all the different changes, and nobody felt the BAP nerfs. Like at any point where you felt like, that ammo count would have come up, it just didn't matter because you were reloading anyway to replenish the heal, the healing aspect of his grenades, right? So the nerf was just not felt. It didn't solve any of his problems. He's still pretty strong. Him and Ana, top of the list as the supports. Ana still very powerful, has the power in the nade. Sleep Dart is still very valuable, and overall decent damage potential, and Nano Boost is still incredibly strong. Going down the list towards the A tier so far, we have Brig, Ashe, and Doomfist. Brigitte, so just the overall gameplay state, Brig is still really strong. However, because of the changes that Winston got, Mauga can kind of bully her, just slightly bully her because of how fast he can burst her shield down and everything. Brig has to play super careful, but still overall, A tier pick. We were playing her last night in some different styles of brawl comp as well as dive comps. But the Brig players that we did have, and even I got to play Brig for a little bit, we all just kind of agreed that yeah, there's like, especially against a Winston, like if you don't flail him and he lands on you, you really feel like, oh crap, I can't, like it's over, like I can't escape. Like we really, either we burst him down quick, or you pray that you didn't accidentally use shield bash and quickly run out of line of sight. But if the map is a little bit tight, or the positioning where you are is a bit too tight and there's nowhere to go, you're pretty much gonna get caught. So you have to be a little bit more careful playing Brig now, but still she's an A tier pick. Pretty solid, not bad, still pretty strong. She still has like rally and all sorts of, like, inspire, the big AoE, and it's just, she's still really strong. Just A tier now, not because of the nerfs that she got, just because of the way the gameplay environment changed. Ashe also a pretty solid pick, really good to mid to long range maps, pretty good with the mercy pocket, fits really well with the poke comps. Poke never took a big nerf this season. People are still playing poke here and there. She fits in well over there, and yeah, Ashe solid pick. Don't really have much to say about her. Her weaknesses are still there. She's still like, if you're smart about how to dive her and force out her cooldowns, it's pretty easy to dive and punish her unless she is playing close to her supports. But if it's an Ashe taking aggressive angles, yeah, you can take her out pretty easily. So dive, because dive took a buff this season, Ashe is a little bit weak. Not S tier, A tier, pretty solid pick. Doomfist. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Doomfist in the hands of a specialist. I want to clarify this, right? Doomfist in the hands of a specialist can be potentially A tier, but overall he's borderline B tier. The problem with Doomfist is that they refuse to buff any of his aggressive aspects, and everything that he kind of gets for himself forces him to play slower and forces him to slow down his gameplay. And because of this, even the nerf that they gave him was definitely felt. I was playing Doomfist and I didn't, like, I was like, oh, I should have Meteor, and I didn't have it. I was like 86%, 75%. I'm like, oh god, I'm feeling the nerfs, and it's just not good. So overall, Doomfist really, like, if a team can follow up on your punches and everything, it can work out really well. But please, for the love of God, do not use Meteor Strike aggressively. It is not going to work out in your favor because of the reaction time that people can respond to you faster. Playing aggressive with Doomfist is just not worth it. He's kind of just become a punch bot where you just want a powered punch in, hopefully somebody follows up with you, and then you continue the cycle of going in and cleaning up, or you really just kind of just block, get the punch, boop them away, wait it out, wait for an opening, then go in. So you have to play him very carefully, but let's assume the stars align for you, the moonlight shines on you, Mr. Protagonist, then for sure Doomfist can feel A tier. However, overall, again, gameplay environment has changed quite a bit. In this patch, he is, not S tier, just a borderline top B or bottom A. Like, he's over there. But let's assume everything works out in your favor. Definitely A tier, but needs help. Actually, I don't know. I'm lost. I want to put him in B, but I think he's A. But from the whole community perspective and how people are getting better at countering him, how Sombra is incredibly strong this patch, and also other things, you know what? I was gonna put him in A, but I'm just gonna drop him in B. I don't think he's bad, but I think he definitely needs help. And I think the developers really need to drop their bias against Doomfist. And again, like I said, we have a Doomfist, the sad state of Doomfist video coming out soon, where I will dig into the problems with not just Doomfist but dive characters in general. Also, before we move on, have you guys ever noticed we've not gotten a new quote unquote dive tank in a long time? Just something to kind of note, and I will talk about this problem, in a moment, and in a future video. Diva's pretty okay. Like, she has her moments where she's pretty good. She's not necessarily bad. She has pretty good matchups against Hog and Mauga, and she's pretty good at even marking Sombra and stopping her cooldowns. So I think Diva's overall a pretty solid pick. I wouldn't necessarily say she's A, but there are places where she can come alive and it catches people off guard because not everybody's used to the new Diva, like, cooldowns and the way how quick she can feel now. So I will definitely say Diva has a place in the game, but it's very niche and it's very situation dependent as well as counter picking dependent, that okay, they're playing this, if we all just group up together playing this big ball, we can definitely slow them down. She's pretty good into Mauga and Hog, who are seeing increased playtimes. I believe even Alec Dawson had said that Hog is in the top 3 tanks in terms of overall data performance. So, and I'm not going to lie, I have begun to feel it as well, that yeah, you know what, Hog is pretty good. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say he's top 3, maybe top 5, but definitely Hog is feeling pretty good going into the future of this current patch of Season 8. 𝐒𝐒 is A. I was considering S because her burst potential against Mauga, Roadhog, and just generally tanks, and her ability to isolate squishes is pretty strong. But she has her weaknesses. She also, I would say she needs a Mercy now because of, like, there's a lot of stuff that support players can pick, like Bap, Ana, Iliari do a really good job of just bullying you. So if you don't have a Mercy, it's a bit hard to play her. With a Mercy, she's S tier. Without Mercy, she's A tier. So 𝐒𝐒, just gonna leave her there. And Copy is still kind of okay as an ultimate. Nothing too much to boast about. But 𝐒𝐒, solid pick, A tier, very strong, has her weaknesses. But yeah, if you put a Mercy with her, she can take over a lobby very easily, especially if you're playing in uncoordinated environments like Quick Play or Ranked. Definitely very interesting character. Genji, now this is a very interesting one. So I'm a Genji main. You guys know who I am, where I come from, what I've done with him over the years. Genji, for me, I've been feeling like he's doing pretty well. I would definitely think that he could use a little bit of help in the damage department for his Shuriken. I'm okay if they want to keep Blade weak, but just put more power in Shuriken, because more often than not, like, he's taking neutral fights, and over there with the high healing in the game, it feels so hard to keep up with it all. But I will say that Genji's really not that bad. I kind of want to put him in A, or he's a solid B. Like, if you're a specialist on him like me and you understand how to play him, there's definitely an A tier pick, but general community consensus, he's a B tier pick. He's all right. He's all right. He doesn't really excel at anything, but he doesn't necessarily have, like, he's not as bad as people make him out to be, but I still think he needs buffs, right? I still think characters like Genji and Doom, they shouldn't be in the spot that they're in, where basically it's like, if a specialist is playing them, they're both A tier, but if the general player is playing him and they can play him competently, he's B tier. If you guys kind of understand what I mean, like, you really need to bring out the maximum potential when you're playing these characters when it comes to Genji and Doom, right? Hanzo, I will say, is A tier. Hanzo, I feel like people just kind of forget about him here and there. He's pretty vulnerable to dives from Doom, Genji, and 𝐒𝐒, but because Poke is still seeing play, he can fit into Brawl. Like, there are some Brawl comps that we were trying out last night. Hanzo fits into them pretty well. I wouldn't say he's S tier. And actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna drop him in B. I think Hanzo, pretty strong. He kind of relies on being in the right comp to make him work, but a good dive comp can immediately shut down Hanzo really quickly. And because Winston did get a buff, Sombra got a pretty good buff, Tracer got a decent buff, Genji is still very strong into Hanzo. I will say Hanzo is in B. I wouldn't put him in A tier. Maybe if he had a faster, like, arrow charge time or something, or they improved how Storm Arrow worked and maybe giving him one more Storm Arrow, he would be pretty strong. But Hanzo, pretty good. Also has a really good matchup against Mauga and Roadhog in the way he can burst them down. So not bad, not bad. Their B tier is pretty much not bad, but if you're good at the hero, you can push them to their limits and bring them in A tier in the right situation. At least for Genji, Hanzo, and Doomfist. These three, they're just situation dependent. And more often than not, when you pick Bastion, Cass, and Diva, you're trying to counterpick something. Okay, moving on, Junker Queen. Junker Queen's buff is huge and not a lot of people are talking about it. She's not as strong as what is going to be meta in Hog, Mauga. Ram for sure is very strong, but she's not bad. Like, again, not bad, not good, situational. In the right hand of somebody, you can make her work. However, she still has her shortcomings where without commanding shout and important support cooldowns, she can just kind of fall apart to other tanks really quickly. Like, she's very feast or famine. Like it's either you pop off or you don't. There's no in between. So B tier tank, pretty good, not bad, but be careful when you play her. She's definitely in that spot where just try your level best to win as you have that commanding shout. Because if you don't, once commanding shout is gone, you are very vulnerable to them just pushing in on you and your team. And yeah, pretty solid. Not bad. Definitely like much better than before. Junkrat, that's a C tier. I'm not going to lie. Junkrat, he's okay. He's kind of bad nowadays. Bastion and Torp just overtook that spot of fast spam damage that just like bursts people down or whatever. There's very few areas that where he can work pretty well. Like if you're defending Shambali first point or just defending Shambali first and second point in general, Rat isn't that bad. Like Lijiang Command Center, very map and situation dependent hero. But of course, if you're some crazy specialist like I've been seeing on TikTok, and you know what, you can take over games with Junkrat. But overall, Junkrat, he's kind of meh. He's kind of bad. They're just better options, and they're all above him in that regard. Kiriko, S tier pick. Kiriko got a massive buff, and I'll put her above Ana as well. Got a massive buff, 80 burst healing with the Suzu, and the fact that if she cleanses, it's a 110 healing on multiple people in a given situation. That's crazy. Kiriko is super strong this patch, and not a lot of people are talking about it, of that Kiriko was the biggest winner in this patch in my opinion. Lucio. I spoke about Lucio in the sad state of Lucio video. We did try him in scrims. We did try some stuff with Mauga, with Junker Queen, with the new Ram based comp, with him and Kiriko or Ana, and he's okay. I don't want to put him in C, but he's borderline C and just barely B. In the right combat situation, B. Otherwise, C. Like, he doesn't... It's funny because you would think that you could play him in some comps like Dive. It is just this is better options. You're better off playing Ana Kiriko, Ana Brick than playing Lucio and Dive. B. Just, he's okay. He's okay. Everything he does, his damage is okay, his boop is okay. He needs a buff or a small rework. He's okay. Very niche character, but he's okay. Mei is really strong. Not a lot of people talk about it. And because we might be going into a Brawl meta with some variation of Dive here and there, primarily because Brawl will be easier to play, I do think Mei will be a character people default to, so don't sleep on her. She's A tier. And Wall is still amazing, and it's going to be amazing in the Mauga matchup, like walling him off and he doesn't have anywhere to overrun, and apply that concept to other tanks as well. Mei is pretty strong. Don't sleep on her. And she can be okay against Dive as well, within a good anti-dive comp. But there are better picks. However, overall, Mei is a pretty good pick. The nerf, you definitely feel it, but it's not that bad. Mercy. Now here's a blazing hot take, okay? I was originally going to put Mercy in C tier, where just like Junkrat, situational character, but because of the way the game is kind of shaping up, and that Valkyrie change that they gave to Mercy, where she can have constant beam uptime and increase the healing, we were playing some variations of Ana Mercy, as well as trying some very ludicrous comps, very silly comps, and we found some success with the Mercy. I want to put her, again, just like Lucio, borderline B to C tier, but she fits in really well with some of the A tier DPS, and even with like a Genji cast, like, very dependent. I would say specialist pick, right? C tier. I wouldn't necessarily put her in B, because there's just very little utility other than damage boost that Mercy brings to the table. However, let's say the person that you're pocketing on Genji, Ashe, Echo, Cast, if they're popping off like crazy, Mercy skyrockets to A tier, right? But overall gameplay wise, mid. C tier, not going to lie, right? we have to view them from many objective point of view. So I viewed everybody from, okay, if they're really popping off, like in the right comp and situation, Doom goes up to A tier, but general play, Doom is B. So I try to view from both. Overall, the list is a little bit more general. So, but I like to mention the other stuff because, I like to be like objective that, okay, if this was from this point of view, Mercy goes here. From that point of view, Mercy goes there. Moira. Oh boy. Oh, I'm going to make some people upset with this one. Moira is D tier. Moira is not that good at keeping tanks up anymore. Her overall heal potential is really meh. Kiriko and Bap are just clear upgrades over her. If you want to heal bot, Kiriko is just the better support. If you want to heal bot and pop off, Bap is just the better support. She's good up until metal ranks finishes. The moment you enter Diamond Plus, she just falls off. Just no utility is a big deal. And because of all the negative status effects that are coming in the game, with Mauga bringing his fire ability, anti-nade, etc., the freeze from Mei, because she's also pretty strong right now, Moira just doesn't bring enough to the table. She doesn't. And that's okay, because her skill to value ratio is perfectly fine. She's an intro level character, and up until like playing in that circle of metal rank players, she's all right. But beyond that, from an overall perspective, compared to everybody else in the game, she's D tier. Especially compared to other supports. Mercy is much better than her. Like, Mercy just brings more to the table with damage boost and res, and the new Valk buffs are pretty good. Moira's just meh. Especially with the new, with Season 8 patch, where Kiriko got Giga buffed and everything. There's just very, very little reason to play Moira anymore. Unless you really enjoy her, then go ahead. Who am I to tell you, right? It's my opinion, my list. You can make your own, I don't mind. Orisa is also B tier. Her lack of kill potential really, really throws her down, but her ability to stay alive long enough to control fights is decent. I don't really have anything else to say. B tier. Pharah. Pharah is, oh boy. I know there's a few people that are not going to like this, and I love Pharah. I have over 557 hours last I checked a few months ago. I love playing Pharah, but I ain't gonna lie, C tier. Depends a lot on Mercy. Once you exit the metal rank and go into Diamond Plus, there's just too many things. Think about it. Ana pressures you, Bap pressures you, Iliari pressures you, any other hits can pressure you, and it just requires too much for Pharah to work out. However, again, another objective perspective, if you're a specialist, if you know how to play the roofs of the map and skybox Pharah and also ground Pharah and know how to balance it out, at best she becomes B tier, right next on that same level of Genji Hanzo, right? It's rough for Pharah. And the fact that Mauga's poke has gotten stronger, yeah, I felt it on Pharah last night in scrims. So Pharah, C tier. My girl needs a little bit of help. Alec Dawson said they got a rework coming for her movement. Maybe that helps her out, but I don't know. We might do a Pharah video in the future. Relies way too much on Mercy to be considered viable. But again, in lower elo, she's okay. She's a B tier. But once you get competent players, everybody kind of knows what to do. To a certain extent, Pharah kind of falls off. Ramatra. People are sleeping on Ram. I'm going to throw a blistering hot take out there. Ram is S tier. With the cooldown change that he got a while back, the changes that he got to Omnic form, he feels very fluid. Now, he does kind of fall, he still has his weaknesses of falling prey to Ana's nade, sleep, and some other cooldowns within the game, with Somber can take over him really easily. But I would say that he's borderlining S tier. If they buff him again, he's taking over the whole game. We had a lot of Ramatra compositions last night. We were playing for like 4 or 5 hours. Ramatra was a standout and surprised a lot of us. He was also pretty good at just tanking damage from Mauga and Roadhog, and then outpacing them whenever they had their downtime. He's just really good in that regard. And yeah, the buffs that he got to his neutral gameplay in Omnic form were definitely felt. We were charging Annihilation very quickly. So I will say he's A tier, but borderline almost at S. If they buff him again, he's at S tier again. He's A tier, top of the ladder. Just almost there in S. Almost there. If they buff him again, he's S for sure. Reaper. Reaper is C to D tier, but with Mauga, he enters B to A tier. That's all I have to say. So in that regard, I'm going to drop him in B. He has a lot of weaknesses, but with a Mauga or even a Roadhog composition, and even kind bit with Ram, you can make him work. But he's B. He's just B to C. And you know what? I'm gonna drop him in C. I'm gonna drop him in C. He still feels inconsistent a lot of the times, but he's okay. With 𝐒𝐈, definitely goes B or even to A tier because he gets 105% lifesteal. With his own lifesteal and 𝐒𝐈's lifesteal, yeah, Reaper becomes pretty damn powerful. So I just hope that if there's ever a developer that's watching this video, I hope you guys understand that Reaper doesn't need a nerf if 𝐒𝐈 makes him broken. I really hope we understand this. C tier, borderline B tier. Reinhardt, oh god, this patch is so bad for Rein. They have to buff Rein. This patch, just, oh my god, forget the way the DPS and supports can bully Rein. 𝐒𝐈 just shreds Rein. Ramatra got an amazing buff to shred through Rein as well, as if he didn't before. Roadhog can bully Rein by bursting down his shield and tearing him apart. If Rein needs a lot of help from the team, okay? He needs a lot of help from the team to be able to do anything, and because of that, I think Rein is, again, bottom of B or C, but I will put him in bottom of B simply because very niche situations Rein can be pretty good. But my goodness, it really feels like every brawl tank in the game can just destroy Reinhardt, and we really need to revisit Rein. Against every other brawl tank, you really have to be super careful. You can still make him work. He can still be pretty good in a brawl composition with Mei, with Lucio, with Ana, with Kiriko. Like, there's so many things that you can benefit from Nano, from Suzu, from Mei's walls and following up on them. But there's just better options in the game. Like, that's the only reason why I might put Rein in B tier. Not bad, not overly good. In the hands of the right person, you can do things. Roadhog, A tier, right next to Ram. I think Roadhog is really strong. He still falls prey to Ana's nades, falls prey to a lot of other things like Sombra's hacks and things, but he's pretty strong, and I feel like a lot of people are underestimating his potential. And I will say, I think we may need to nerf Hog just a little bit. We also know that the developers know this as well, and they were waiting to see how Hog fares into 𝐒𝐈. I will say between 𝐒𝐈 and Hog, it's just a matchup of who supports land the cooldowns at the right time. It's a little bit Roadhog favored because of the high burst damage that Hog does bring, and I will make a slight argument that Hog's poke is just slightly better than 𝐒𝐈's, at least in our experiences where we were playing it and the feedback that we got from our tank players in those scrims. But so far, Hog is A tier, really strong tank. Sigma, also A tier. Nerfs didn't really do anything to him. He's pretty strong where he wants to be. In fact, I'll put him above everybody else. Poke is still pretty good, but Brawl is coming back. It's that power creep meta where they're forcing everybody to, okay, it's fine. Like, instead of nerfing these things, we'll just force these guys into relevancy. We'll say, though, that I think Ram is above Sigma, but Sigma can pressure Hog pretty well. So Hog is really not that good against poke-based composition. So yeah, Ram is good into Sigma. Sigma does struggle against Ram here and there, but Roadhog, definitely a good Sigma can make Roadhog's life a living hell with the way that they can control the pacing for Hog, deny the hooks, etc., etc. Sojourn is okay. I don't think Sojourn is that overpowered. She's almost at that point where she was at Season 2 levels of power level. She's in the hands of a specialist. She's pretty good. I think she's A or B tier. I don't know. I will say she's... It's weird because Soldier 76 is being swapped in for her. Wherever you can play Soldier, and Soldier is just a little bit better because he feels more consistent. Because Sojourn's primary fire, you know, the projectiles that she shoots out, they're very inconsistent. So you rely a lot on that one-shot mechanic. Her ult is still pretty good, but again, a lot of stuff in the game that can screw her over. With the Mercy Pocket, I will say she's A tier, otherwise she's B tier. I think a lot of DPS are in B tier right now. They're all reliant on the player that's playing them. Like, even at their max potential, it just depends on the player, I would say. Soldier 76, however, on the other hand, is A tier. He's pretty good. He's pretty damn good. Even the developers have acknowledged this. He has, if I'm not mistaken, on Overbuff last month, he has the highest win rate from the entire DPS category. So, like, I know it takes into account of the entire gameplay level, but he's not that bad. He's pretty good, and my list as well is considering the entire game. He's A tier. I don't think there's a single DPS that might be hitting S tier except one that we'll talk about as I get there. Sombra is that one. Actually, yeah, S for Sombra. Sombra is really, really, really good. But you have to be super fast. You have to be really, really precise. But with that new buff that she got, we were all feeling it on the receiving end, on the throwing end. If EMP hits, it is almost a guaranteed team fight win now. It is really strong, and I don't like this change. I spoke about it in the balance change video. This is not how you buff Sombra. You could have just applied the virus effect for longer periods to everybody that gets hit by EMP, allowing Sombra more, damage potential over time, as well as a skill expression. This whole thing of everybody becomes headless chickens, I don't like this direction. However, I will say that it makes her, it puts her in S tier. She charges her ultimate really fast, and against the Hog composition, against Mauga, against even Ramatra, once he enters that brawl form, she can control them really well. And she's really strong with dive, so in my opinion, Sombra, at least for me, in my opinion, she's an S tier pick. If your Sombra is very proactive, if you get a very passive Sombra player, she instantly drops to C tier. But yeah, that's my opinion on Sombra. You can let me know what you think down below. Sim, my goodness. Sim can fit into brawl comps really well. We didn't really test her out. I think she's just C tier. Like she can fit in really well. I do think though that with Mauga she can be pretty strong because of the lifesteal. And with the Mercy Pocket, she can be pretty good. She also gets pretty fairly... she has a decent synergy with the way Kitsune Rush can just make her melt people faster, because her fire rate then can be really threatening. And yeah, I think Sim is C tier. I don't think Sim is that good. On King of the Hill maps, Sim goes instantly to B tier, and she can control those maps really well. But at the moment, there's a lot of things that can just outpace her, and she falls apart. I would even say Reaper's a little bit better than her. Even Fire's a bit better than her in that regard. But, specialist pick. If the person on Sim knows what they're doing, they can push her limits to B tier at the best. Other than that, the game has just changed way too much. Maybe 2 patches ago, I would say Sim would be A to B tier. But right now, in my opinion, I think she's C tier. She is pretty good. She is pretty good to play against Sigma poke comps because of the way that she can build up her beam, and then if you just walk into that Sigma with your brawl tank, or you can just burst them down with the 120 beam, I think, pretty fairly easily, and Sigma doesn't have a response to you by that point, since she can't really suck your beam and things. So yeah, Symmetra, C tier, pretty good. Torbjorn, oh my goodness, he's A tier, man. People are sleeping on Torb still. There was a bunch of people that were trying to tell me that Torb isn't that good. He is that damn good. And the fact that he got the 100 overhealth buff because they're anticipating Winston, the whole Winston change and the way Winston works, it's so silly because he's so much more tankier. And because that change is an anticipation to countering dive, other tanks have a bad matchup into Torb. You just the moment a tank comes in, you pop E and you just you burst their HP bar down so fast. He's actually really not that big of a bad of a pick into Hog and Mauga as well. He's really good into other tanks as well. He's really good. His pressure, he gets pressured by other DPS decently. But if you're smart, you know how to position with Torb and you know how to play him and how to spam down chokes with him, my goodness, Torb is top of the list. People are sleeping on Torb, and I've been saying this for a while, and I still think Torb needs nerfs. I think Torb is incredibly strong, brings a 6th body to the table, brings so much poke. He's just amazing. In poke, in anti-dive comps, in brawl comps, he can fit into so many things. Doesn't really fit into dive for obvious reasons, but Torb, really strong. I will put him above the other A tier picks. He's really strong. If you want to disagree with that, feel free. Tracer. This is very interesting. So Tracer still gets pretty decently countered by Torb. Eliari Pylon still makes Tracer life a living hell. There are breakpoint changes that does put Tracer in a good spot. I will put Tracer at the top of A tier compared to every other DPS at the max potential. In the right hands, Tracer is really good. But when there's a Torb and Eliari in the game, in that poke anti-dive matchup, yeah, Tracer can feel pretty awkward, not going to lie. So overall, she's A tier, big up from B tier, where I put her last season, I believe. A tier, really strong in the right hands, can work with multiple compositions really well, especially if you're a good Tracer. But against certain compositions, she's a bit awkward, I would say she's borderline S tier. If Torb and Eliari or Brig are not there, no, even against Brig, Tracer has a decent matchup now. Brig's new breakpoints are pretty good. And with Brig taking that nerf on the whip shot, you know, even if you get hit by Brig, you can follow up and like do a little bit more burst damage, then recall, and then secure the kill on Brig and keep going. It's a skill matchup between the two. I would say that's a skill matchup between the two. Who strikes first, it's between them. Overall, though, compared to the overall game state, Tracer has, oh my god, man. I was playing Tracer, my tank was playing 𝐒𝐈𝐊 last night, and when that lifesteal comes on, bro, I just felt immortal on Tracer. Especially if you're brawling, if you're bursting a tank, Tracer feels really strong. I know I'm viewing things objectively from the 𝐒𝐈𝐊 perspective, but against rest of the roster as well, Tracer's pretty good. Like, it just depends on you as that player. And similarly, depending on who is playing the character, Widowmaker comes in. Widowmaker, again, also very dependent on the player that is playing her. However, I will put her in A tier. She does kind of fall prey to Tracer and Sombra, and even a good Genji or Hanzo can make her life pretty well if they're marking her and constantly bursting her down. Sigma, being pretty prevalent, does kind of, you know, cut off that line of sight for her, and it can feel really frustrating if nobody is bursting the Sigma down. And at that point, you're just better off playing Ashe. However, let's just say you're getting your angles in and everything, Widow's not that bad. I will put her in A tier. Winston. Winston is interesting. He is really strong right now. The Suzu changes, Ana synergy, Tracer and Sombra being really powerful together. I want to put him S tier. And then there are very interesting situations where, of course, if they're counter-picking you, they've gone Bastion, Reaper, Roadhog, Zen, and Ana's perma-marking you with Nade, Brig flailing you around, he drops to B tier. But that change to Winston is amazing, and let's just say at max potential, I will say Winston is S tier now. But if they've picked your counter picks, you gotta get off. There's nothing you can do about it. They didn't, like, the silliest thing is, even in the developer patch notes, they were like, no, the stuff that we gave to Winston makes him better against tanks. It does not. He falls prey to 𝐒𝐈𝐊, he falls prey to Roadhog, he falls prey to even Orisa, I would argue, and that Orisa can just control his movement with the javelin spin and the javelin throw. Even Doom can outpace Winston and just control him, and it can be really frustrating on the Winston player. However, if you are very fast with your dives and you can set up really well, Winston is S tier, borderline A tier. Let's just say that. But I will throw him in S for now. With the new Sombra, that virus combo with Winston and the Tracer running into together, oh my goodness, and the 𝐒𝐿𝐄 bringing in extremely high burst heals paired with Ana, oh my god, we were having a lot of fun last night in that comp. Playing Ana 𝐒𝐿𝐄, or like Ana 𝐒𝐿𝐄 with sometimes Ana Brig. It just depends like what our supports wanted to do and how they wanted to play. We were able to flex around it. I was playing Sombra at the time. We had another Tracer player with Winston. It was pretty strong. It really is right now, like the meta is just a headbutt between brawl and dive. If you're good at dive, you can get over brawl comps, but if you're struggling to really time your dives, brawl takes over. So the meta is kind of in there right now. It's very skill based on the composition of dive versus brawl, but brawl is easier to play and dive is harder to play, and it's also easier to counter dive than it can be to, you know, outpace the brawl comps depending on, you know, compositional matchups. Wrecking Ball needs a lot of help. I really don't have that much to say about him. He's just a weaker Doomfist in the way that he wants to disrupt things. Even at his max potential, he touches B tier at best, but he's C tier for me. I don't know. Ball needs a lot of help, and he's the top priority for the developers right now. I'm even going to say that he's D tier, but if you just ignore Ball and run at his team, there's nothing Ball can do for them. There's nothing that Ball can do if you ignore him and run for his team. He just sits there and he's like, well, okay, I guess that happened. So unless you're playing hyper aggressive with the ball, it's as soon as the ball hits the slam and you don't follow up on it, it's GG's for you, because now the other team has a 5v4 and the ball cannot do anything about it, because we'll just ignore the ball and run in on you. Ball in the hands of a specialist, C tier at best. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think he's that good. Zarya is still a pretty solid pick for a plethora of reasons. A tier, not that bad, not that strong. She kind of is falling to Ramatra here and there. She has good matchups against Junker Queen. She can be really good against Hog if you're timing your bubbles right. But actually, no. I will say Hog has the edge just by a little bit because of his take a breather changes. That take a breather change against Zarya really messed up the matches. Maybe against old Hog, Zarya had advantage, a window to burst him down. But now Hog is just a little bit more favored to win that matchup. They're just headbutting each other. Like, yeah, that's all I have to say, honestly. Zen is not that bad. He's balanced now, I would say. He's strong where he wants to be strong, but he's not that broken anymore. If he never got the Discord orb changes in this current meta, I'd put him in S tier. With the way that Brawl, Poke, and Dive are all really viable right now. Like, there's no one meta comp, guys. It is map dependent, situation dependent, counter pick dependent. In that regard, I will say Zen is A tier. He does get outclassed by Iliari, who I will say where you are going to play Iliari, she still feels, in my opinion, S tier. Really, really strong support. Life Fever, his nerfs did bump him down. He's very awkward. He's just heal bot and stay alive character. Life Pool can be pretty good against pulling your, hook teammates out of certain situations. He's okay. His ultimate is very strong. It's just another rally. It's really strong. If you position the tree right and bully them into an area where they cannot run away, like a May wall type of tree, he's okay. I will say he's not A tier, he's B tier. He's pretty good. He's pretty good. He's not that bad, not that strong. He's pretty good, not that bad. None of the supports that aren't Mercy and Moira, they're pretty good. If you can make them work, they're pretty good. They're just better options than Life Fever. It's like whatever Life Fever can do, Kiriko does it, brings more aggression, brings more just aggression in general. Like, damage is better on Kiriko, and the ultimate is much better. Suzu is just better. It's like, why would you want to slow the game down? You play Life Fever if you want to play a slower game. So he's not that bad in Poke and Brawl, but the name of the game right now is who can be aggressive. Because of Sombra, because of Tracer, because of Winston, everybody just wants to play faster this season, which I do like. At least in my experience from 5 hours of scrimming last night and trying all sorts of things with different people and everything from our Discord group. And in that regard, Life Fever, B tier. I will say he's better than Lucio though. By the way, guys, like, while I've put them all in different tiers, I haven't, arranged them in that order where this guy is better than that guy. Like, it's just a generic tier list, okay? Mauga, oh my god, Mauga is the toughest one to do. Simply because there were so many moments where Mauga feels instant D tier, and then there are moments where Mauga feels A tier. So in that regard, the buffs that he got were all nice, but his weaknesses are still there. His lethality has gone up. He's securing kills much faster than before. I don't know, man. I think Mauga is B. I don't want to put him in A. Neither do I want to put him in C or D. For me, he's in B, and that's it. But there was a lot of times last night where our tank player kept saying, dude, Mauga is bad, and then other moments he was like, no, Mauga is really good. It just depends on what you're running into. And if they play Ana Kiriko, or they play Ana Bap, actually, if they play Ana Bap against your Mauga, and they have some form of like high burst damage or a shutdown character like Sombra who can just farm EMP off of him, man, does it suck to play Mauga. It really, really sucks when you get hit by Discord Orb and you're getting poked, and he's so dependent on the map having a lot of cover and being tight and not open. If the map is open, in my opinion at least, he struggles. The buffs that they did give him somewhere, they were like, we want to better his poke. I'm not going to lie, they didn't better his poke. His poke is still meh. Against Roadhog, he has a decent matchup since that is something that they wanted to focus on this season. He's pretty meh against Sigma. He has a pretty good matchup against Ryan and Ram. But if you're smart on Ram and you just block it out and wait until he's vulnerable without lifesteal, Ram can bully him pretty well. I don't know, man. I think he's A. If the enemy team doesn't respect you, he's A. If the enemy team respects your comp and tries to counterpick you, he drops to C or D really quickly. So overall, I'm going to put him in B, right next to Junker Queen. And that's my tier list. That is it. At the moment, I don't think there's any one powerful comp. I think Poke is good. I think Dive got a buff. I think Dive is now in that position where you can play it safely. And if you are targeting the backline and going super full steam ahead with the Winston, with Sombra, with Tracer, flexing in a Genji, Echo, Pharah here and there, Dive is back. The whole point of this patch was Dive is back, but holy crap, did Brawl get a big buff. Feel like people are not talking about Brawl enough, and Roadhog is kind of just going into that Brawl comp. Like, one of the things that I don't like is I feel like Brawl has so many ways to play. You can play a Rhine Brawl, you can play a Roadhog Brawl, you can play Zarya Brawl, you can play Ramatra Brawl or Ramatra Rush with the Lucio, and Brawl has so many options. And I feel like at the moment, it's all three compositions of Poke, Brawl, / Rush, if you slide in Lucio, and the dive comps. It's either map dependent, situation dependent, how many counter picks do they have for you, etc., etc. They're all neck to neck. But I will say Winston, Sombra, Tracer, Dive has the edge just by slightly. In our testing, that is what we felt. That slightly, if there's a comp that's sticking out heads above water, Winston, Sombra, Dive with the Tracer or an Echo to burst down Brawl tanks or high healing compositions was pretty good. So it was like you needed, at least in our experience and what we were feeling, was you need Winston, you need Sombra. The person that's playing Tracer, so the flex DPS has to play Tracer, Genji, Echo, or Pharah. It was all situation dependent, or even at certain points when things weren't looking good and the maps were becoming longer sightlines, the Winston would then swap over to a Poke. So you would go Sigma. The Sombra could stay, but the Sombra play would eventually swap over to something like Sojo, Widow, or Soldier 76, and then you would default to like Hanzo, or you could stay on Echo or Genji. But the game's compositions are very flexible right now. The meta hasn't been figured out, but Dive is definitely borderline almost the true meta. I will say that. Almost the true meta is Dive, but there is answers to it. If you are not doing picture-perfect dives with the Winston Sombra Tracer comp, then Brawl takes over. My only one last advice, I know the talk of the town for now is Roadhog and what's the other guy? Mauga, the new guy, because he's new and people are still learning him. I will say one thing, do not sleep on Sig and do not sleep on Ran. Both of them are still very good at enabling their respective compositions of Brawl and Poke. Both of them are really good. Do not sleep on them. Play the new Ramatra. He's the sleeper pick of the season, I will say that. Yes, he has his weaknesses, but he feels so fluid, and he feels like he doesn't have a window where he's weak now, with the changes they gave to his projectile size and damage numbers. Anyways, everybody, that's it for this video. If you want to support the channel for free, just hit like and subscribe, and let me know who you feel are the go-to picks for this season down below. And you can if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by using the super chat. With that said, see you in tomorrow's video.